I wanted to talk to you about a kind of approach, different approach. So
Mm-hmm.
there is like I've been reading about Adler's philosophy
Mm-hmm.
and Freudian approach. So it's like so in mental health psychology and even in in like the medical field, they use the Freudian approach, which is like associating a person's past and understanding that everyone has a certain trauma and various behaviors that they show is because of their result of their childhood trauma or
Yeah.
different complexes.
Mm-hmm.
So like we have been taught trauma informed approaches in our courses as well, how in workplaces you need to be aware of if someone behaves aggressively, it might be because of something that happened in the past. And
Mm-hmm.
it's basically a law of using determinism and understanding their behavior through logic. So this happened, that's why this happened. So this is like the Freudian perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And coming to an Adler's perspective, I felt really fascinating by it, and I feel that it works. It is something very, let's say, very radical and kind of controversial. And I kind of see it like people who are more conscious, who are in the future, they might use it or might consider it. So the Adlerian philosophy says that uh, all problems stems from interpersonal relationships, and it says that a person doesn't have a past. Okay.
Hmm.
And it really is different from a Freudian perspective.
What do you
And
mean
it says
what do you mean a person doesn't have a past?
they have a past, but they don't have like a behavior that is caused by their past. For example, something happened in their past, it's not the result of the present behavior. So the present behavior
Hmm.
that they are showing is the result of their present choices or actions, right?
Yeah.
So it
Um,
says that, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
well, what do you think? Which one of those two aspects feels most true at its core to you?
It's kind of hard to see, but if I kind of if kind of intuitively I see that Adler's philosophy is more, let's say, it promotes more personal will, and it takes into you are more accountable right now at the present moment in order to
Hmm.
behave how you want to. You are not a victim of your past or the
Yeah.
trauma, right? So
Right.
it kind of very empowering, and
Hmm.
it says that if you behave in a certain way, or if uh, uh, if you live a life a certain way, it's because you are not brave enough to, not brave, it says the courage, the element of courage, that it says that you don't have enough courage to actually choose the thing that you want, right, at
Hmm.
that moment. And you kind of, for example, someone who blames their past or their external circumstances, they don't have enough courage to, let's say, choose that option, right?
Yeah. Can I
And yeah,
can I interject
yeah, yeah, sure.
a maybe just a thought. This doesn't have to be something that we cling to or believe in, but I think it's possible that both of those theories have aspects of truth to them. And I think that both of those individuals, Adler, I'm not as familiar with. Freudian psychology, I'm a little more familiar with. And the extent that he tried to subdivide the human consciousness into the trifecta of the id, ego, superego, with the id representing the basis survival instincts of the egoic conscious, right? So from the very beginning, Freud was trying to compartmentalize and to structure and label our human psyche in um, very defined and to him easy to understand and standardized ways that could be approached in a standardized way depend all across the world, no matter who the medical treating or psychologist was or psychiatrist that was treating the condition. So it did us a service over the last 100 plus years, in that it helped us to advance and develop the field of psychology, but it also at the same time very much limited us because we've put labels on literally everything. We've put labels on every individual, every condition, every disorder. Everything now has a label. And what is a label? It's just an attempt to put boundaries around something and say, This is what this is. And as
Mhm.
soon as you label an individual or a condition or an individual as having a condition, you've just attempted to put a thought system of boundaries around them that says this is what that individual is and has, and this is the reason they're behaving the way they are. But people are not boundaries. We are energetic beings that are dynamic and constantly evolving and growing in every microsecond. We are not limited and we are not bound by these walls and labeling structures that science and now psychology and medical
Mhm.
practice have attempted to bind us in. That's the limitation of the Freudian psychology, is that 150 or whatever years later, we're still trying to package people into these labeling systems and treat them based on labeling systems that might be good for us to have developed a common understanding of difficulty and of disorder, but is an inaccurate way to really describe a dynamic soul that is capable of completely redefining itself in any moment. If I wanted to, the will that and the power that's inside me could completely redefine my emotions and my behavior and my triggering mechanisms in days or weeks if I wanted to. What does psychological labeling or personality tests or any type of structured system that we have in place right now have to say about that?
Uh,
They would deem that as impossible. Like the MBTI labels a person as INTJ, for example, and essentially says that's what you are. And so you should live your life in those parameters and be comfortable
yeah.
in those parameters.
You know what the funny thing is that what you are saying right now, it's totally Adler's first perspective.
Okay. Well, so I'll switch the tracks then and tell you from Adler's perspective, he's also limited in his perspective if he's truly saying that our past has no legitimate implication on our present behavior. Here's the caveat to that. I think from the soul perspective, he's absolutely correct. The soul operates outside of this physical reality. That means it has no the past and the personality traits and the events and traumas and all those circumstances that have happened to us that have led up to this very moment in time, true, have no implication on the core soul's understanding and reactivity to any situation, because the soul always understands creation is always occurring in this particular moment. This moment is the position of creative power. The
That's
soul,
where Adler's perspective comes in, right? So,
yeah.
in Adler's perspective, let's say, like scientifically speaking, and let's say if this would be implemented in the workforce or mental health field, right? It's more
Hmm.
closer to your perspective from the, I would name it a soul's perspective, maybe your
Mm,
perspective. And so, like he says that, for example, everything like an individual is indivisible. It can't be divided, right? As Adler or as Freud has divided it right into different perspectives. Like
mm,
there is a certain aspect to it, and this happens because of this. So biology is a different thing, and psychology is a different thing. They are not interconnected. In Adler's perspective, he says that everything is connected.
hmm,
Certain biological features that comes in, for example, a woman, she blushes because, and there was an example in this book that if a woman blushes, uh, she kind of say blames the blushes that uh, she's not able to propose her crush, but it's she's creating that biological response because of the fear of rejection, right? So
hmm,
it's kind of like that. So once you kind of let go of that emotions and that fear, you kind of let go of that biological responses as well. So
hmm,
Adler says that it's mostly like your will. So like you can control right now. You have the choice, for example, as you said, the MITB and the personality test, right? It says that you are certain, you are an advocate, or you are a campaigner, you are an adventurer, or you are a certain kind of archetype. but you have the choice right now through your decision, through your lifestyle, through the responses right now to choose whether you want to be this, that, or this, or you can be any of this. It's your creative field, right? So it
Yeah.
rejects the past in the sense that, oh yeah, there is a past, I understand that, but I have the choice right now. It won't affect my, I don't have to be a victim to that, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And more so, adding to another perspective, it kind of transform interpersonal relationships as well. If a lot of people implement Adler's philosophy, there will be no hierarchy.
Hmm.
Everything. So in Adler's psychology, he says that um, everyone is in this order. Like there is no hierarchy. So like a plane, and I'm sure like some people are far ahead or back or something like that, but there is no competition. Okay, you are your own competition, and everyone else around you is your comrade, your friends.
Hmm.
And it also says that it also says that, for example, in school, if you are made fun of, you feel that your whole life is going to collapse, right? But in Adler's philosophy, he says that no, like you are actually a part of a bigger community than just school.
Yeah.
If not this school, you can go to another school. If not that school, or if no school at all, you are a part of a whole humanity. And more than that, you are a part of the whole universe, right? So
Hmm.
it kind of you kind of become more authentic in the sense, right? You don't have the fear of like rejection when you go to a organization or stuff like that. You are able to act more authentically and courageously and focus on, you know, what you authentically want rather than fearing. So that kind of perspective kind of makes sense to me compared to like Freudian perspective.
Yeah, I think Freudian perspective with psychology and Darwinian perspective with regard to uh, evolution of the animal kingdom and the basis of life is the survival of the fittest. Both of
Mhm.
them kind of operate from the same perspective that we are individuals, we are material beings, we're only here to uh, live, consume, reproduce, and then die. That's our whole purpose on this planet.
Mhm.
And both of those gentlemen developed theories that were based on the highest objective of an individual being survival and reproduction. But
Mhm.
I think Adler, for example, and some of the more conscious and spiritually focused psychologists
Maybe Kalyang could be
and
added into it.
neuroscientists and conscious oriented researchers that are coming up even now and today are beginning to understand collectively and to beginning to get a voice that they can express that says those things are not the fundamental purpose of this existential experience. They are evident, they are here. We do have evidence of survival as a key function of being a human on this planet, but it's not the only purpose. It's not the only point, and it's certainly not the highest end of
Mhm.
our possible experience on this planet. So, psychology evolves as the individual proposing a psychological structure develops an understanding of um, escalation or development of purpose along those lines.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with William James, he was like one of the founders and fathers of uh, sort of more the spiritual aspect of integrating into psychology, and wrote the
Yeah, William James. Yeah.
varieties of religious experience was his, I think, seminal work. And he talked a lot in there about sort of his own perspectives as opposed to those of Freud in particular. I think he was one that followed a more Jungian path of philosophy. And he understood, like James understood, that, as you were saying before, that biology and psychology, or biology and even our understanding of the spiritual self, are interrelated. There is no separation between those things. Biology, in my opinion, is just the end of the chain of the creative process that began in a non-tangible and non-visible realm of intelligent energy. You could call that the soul or the spirit, whatever you want to call it. But biology is just the sensory systems representation of what originated in the spirit self. If we,
Like kind of adding on to that, like
mm,
in today's world, there is kind of an issue, right? Of let's say some people of racism and discrimination, right?
mhm,
And I find it very absurd that people kind of focus on their, um, color of their skin or something like that. It's so absurd. Like you are actually born with that, and you are actually born with that. It's a genetic thing, and it's something not to be taken.
yeah,
I don't
but
know.
it's,
It doesn't make any sense for me.
well, it on the surface it doesn't, but it's no different than any other fear mechanism. If you're not comfortable in your own place in this world and your own skin, and you don't truly understand who you are, what you are, or why you're here, then you're going to fear everything that seems different than you, and you're going to look for reasons to resist
Oh,
and
makes
repel
sense.
all of those other things, because your identity is not solidified even in your own mind, right? So because your identity is fluid, it's unstable, it has not been congealed into a singular system of belief. Anything that possibly threatens that system, even somebody else's skin color because it's different than yours, which also implies potentially different belief systems, different cultural traditions, different uh, language, different everything. Like there's the inherent possibility, just because somebody looks differently or comes from a different place in the world, that much of what they are is somehow different and therefore threatening to you. Even if that's not true, again, if your foundational understanding of self is not solid, then everything is a threat.
I feel
Everything,
that it comes from a very materialistic perspective, right? Like
yeah.
who focuses on that? Like if some person actually kind of goes into a meditative state and kind of self-inquires and try to understand their nature of reality, they would kind of understand that they are not this body. It doesn't
Hmm.
make any sense, or even you are not your self concept.
But,
Firstly,
e- but even if they do that, those sorts of realizations are usually not lasting. Like they may happen, a light bulb comes on, you
mm-hmm.
understand that, and then you go and operate a little differently in the world as a result of that recognition for a
Yeah,
while. But the world is the world, right? And unless you make a drastic change internally, the world is generally going to continue to present itself to you according to your present belief system and expectations. If those don't change, then you'll revert back to the norm, and
yeah, makes sense.
you'll start to lose the essence of that realization over
Mm-hmm.
time. So there's a responsibility that comes with those sorts of recognitions, as well as going, okay, now I recognize something new about the core of what I am, or the core of what this is. In order to concretize that as my new experience, I have to then now begin to express my understanding and my new truth in ways that evidence that reality for me,
Mm-hmm.
from here forward. If you don't do that, then it's just a little firework that goes off in the mind, and oh, that's cool. And then a week or two or a month later, you're like, where did that go?
I think,
Like,
yeah, I think it's definitely possible. Like having constantly meditating and kind of like going to that space of understanding your consciousness,
hmm.
I feel that you can actually have an impact in your life and impact on your personality and beliefs
Oh yeah.
that can kind of make you like very internally grounded. I kind of experience that, right? Like I
Have you
meditate every day.
have you listened to Nassim Haramein at all?
No.
Yeah, write down his name. And he's he's not a psychologist, but he does a lot of speaking about neuroscience and psychological topics, and sort of
Mm-hmm.
the conscious nature of reality. Um, and a lot of people call him like the a modern day Tesla. The way he talks about our potential of extracting literal physical energy out of this 0 point field of subtle energy that we don't yet even acknowledge scientifically is in
Mm-hmm.
existence. Um, but anyway, one of the things he talks about is how psychology, in his perspective, is a reprogramming of both the past and the future for the individual. Because when an individual sits down with a psychiatrist, for example, and the psychiatrist is able to bring out the story of one or more of those particular traumas that you were talking about earlier, and they get the individual to bring up the triggered emotions that have been repressed as a result of those traumas, what happens next? It's not just talking about it. The individual gets the opportunity to now reframe their present day perspective about those situations and those circumstances and decide, okay, something that evokes fear or anger or frustration or negative emotions in me, I am using my willpower, my creator power to decide I'm going to forgive, for example, the person that caused those circumstances, or I'm going to release the fear that it's inside of me associated with those circumstances. Well, what's happening? It's not just changing your structure today, it is also reframing your perspective about what actually occurred and what the effect of what occurred in those past events, thereby is literally altering your perspective of the past as it relates to you in particular, right? That's from a conscious universe perspective, that is actually reprogramming the past. It's not just changing your behavior from this day forward. It's literally changing the way that that event occurred to you in the past. It's a reprogramming event that spans time.
Yeah.
So again, to look at Adler's perspective, he would say, don't worry about the past. Don't dive into the past for traumas. Just change the way you are right now. But I think he's failing to understand the past is a very powerful and potent tool if we use it effectively and use it responsibly. And if we realize that we have the ability still today to change the way that we orient ourselves to those past circumstances. We shouldn't just avoid it. Avoidance is just a fear mechanism. Avoidance is like, I'm just denying that and I'm not going to focus on it. Well, guess what? Those effects from those traumas or those situations are still inside your energy body. They're still part of you until you orient yourself and focus on them and change something about the way that those patterns are repeating themselves within your energy body, they'll continue to do that.
I
Um,
I think
you
what you're
could,
talking about is like REBT, it's CBT, I mean, cognitive behavioral therapy.
mm,
It's basically a technique that psychologists do. Its origin is from Stoicism,
mm,
from Marcus Aurelius and stuff, Socrates. So it's basically using reasons to kind of make sense of the negative experience that you had and kind of restructuring it, cognitive restructuring, so that you can change the emotions associated with it.
mm.
So I feel that it's still kind of similar to Adler's perspective, but like yeah, I said it may kind of make sense to actually fuse the Freudian perspective and Adler's perspective together, as you said previously, to kind of course, accept that there is a past and kind of reframe it. Uh, but it also comes under the Adler's philosophy that there is a will in the present moment and you can actually change the appraisals and restructure it,
Mm.
uh, and make sense of reality through that. Uh, and also you said that there is certain emotions that are in our body because of the past, right?
Our
Um,
our entire um, spirit to mind to body, if you think of those as a sequence of creation, right? Spirit is first, the non-physicalized, energetic, and intelligent thought form that's geometrically it's behind the physical body. You can't see it because again it's just energy. It's like think of when you're in a movie theater, there's a beam of light that goes from the projector all the way through the theater and then it lands on the screen. So in this analogy, the projector is your spirit, the beam of light is your emotions and your thoughts and everything that's always going on inside the head, and then the screen is the manifestation of the physical body and
mhm.
and our actual actions and behavior, right?
Uh,
That's the
yeah,
structure of this. It's all connected. It's all one mechanism. You can't see, if you take out the projector, there is no stream of light and there's nothing on the screen. If you take out the screen, there is no show. If you cut off the light, then there's neither one of those has the spirit has no purpose. It's just a thought generation system that's not creating anything. And the screen has no purpose. It's just lying lifeless, like what happens when we die. When the spirit is disconnected from the body, we're just lifeless. Um, so you have to have all three in order to have this present life experience. If you discount the existence of any one of those things, then you cut off the ability of the body to understand what its source of power is and what its source of potential for change actually is. The potential for change does not occur in the body, and it doesn't even occur in the mind. It occurs further back, and there's only one way to get into that. You have to go.
psychedelics.
You have well. That's a very
I
that's
can
a
see
very
that this perspective is coming from your mushroom experience.
not.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. You have
I,
told
I
me this
I guess a
during the
little. I
last
guess
episode.
a little bit. But what I would tell you now is that the psychedelic is like you're driving along in a car and you're trying to analyze yourself as though you're in a car, and then you decide, I just want a very exciting experience of self inquiry right now, and you push down on the gas as hard as you can. That to me is what the psychedelic does. It eliminates all physical distraction just like that. It takes out all of your distracting thoughts, it takes out all of your traumas and your emotions and everything, and you get direct connection to that source of being. And whatever comes out is giving you a direct reflection of everything back at the projector level. You're not dealing with anything from the light beam to the screen.
That's an
Um,
interesting perspective though. Like I kind of understand it and it kind of makes sense
mhm,
when you because I didn't have the same experience as you did, right?
mm,
And even a lot of people might not have the might or not the average person would have certain experiences.
yeah.
But considering different knowledge and traditions, this kind of makes sense because they talk about the bigger mind and stuff like that.
Mhm,
But coming to let's say the our initial question, which was like, oh, Adler's philosophy or Freudian perspective, right? Does it so the implementation of these approaches in the workforce or the mental health field,
mhm.
right? Like if we bring like this perspective, which is very radical, in the sense into the workplace, that might not be acceptable, right? Because I don't think it is so it is so I don't think it is easy to prove this perspective in the scientific realm. Uh,
Which perspective do you mean?
like the your perspective, right? That there is a bigger mind, the self is a projection of that mind.
Well, so let me respond to that very quickly with another researcher and theorist that's out there right now named Lynn McTaggart. So this is have you heard of her? She wrote The Field and The Power of Eight, or a couple of the books that she's written.
Uh,
So she's doing work to actually scientifically research and provide physical evidence of the power of individuals and more specifically now groups in setting intentions to not only heal the body, but to create material change in the physical world, right? So she's actually putting she's a journalist. She started her whole career was as a journalist, and then she developed an interest in science and consciousness research and everything. And for the last decade and a half, she has been conducting field studies with sometimes hundreds or thousands of individuals all over the world, sometimes in person, sometimes online and remote, but always with the assistance of trained and often skeptical scientific research assistants who are actually doing the measurements and the analysis. And then she goes and sends the results off to unbiased agencies
Interesting.
to actually compile. So she's not doing the research, she's not doing the analysis, she's just conducting um, the amalgamation of all the individuals that are going to participate in the study, and then she lets the study go on, and then she goes and speaks about and writes books about what the results were. And what she's finding and what she's found is that individuals do have the power to create change, not only in their physical body, but the physical body is just a first step in the manifestation of an individual's field of consciousness. So there is no separation energetically between my body and, we'll say, my computer screen here. It's
Interesting.
it's
It's the
just a
same
field of
theory
energy.
that was in quantum mechanics, which says
Yeah,
that quantum entanglement, and it
yeah.
was seen that your body kind of reacts to the external
Yeah.
room, right?
So when you suggested, like, you can't prove scientifically that this theory works, well, you can now. Then there are people doing it and publicizing it and speaking about it and getting money from the government and universities to research this further. Um, so the problem is not that we can't validate it. It's then the next, what's the next step is getting our established academic, scientific, medical,
It's
our
not conventional, is what I'm trying to say. It's not in the
it's
mainstream, right?
right. That's the bigger issue, is that this has not yet flowed into the mainstream. But you know what? Like any type of revolution in thinking throughout history has always started with small sparks that then had to turn into bigger and bigger waves,
Yeah.
and eventually they become the predominant way of thinking in
I
society.
feel that Joe Dispenza, he's doing the same thing,
Hmm.
right? And even
Yeah,
EPRC, Emergent Phenomenological Research Consortium, that we are volunteering, they are doing the
right.
same kind of thing. And like as you said, it's kind of the tiny spark that kind of comes in, and then the paradigm changes and people
Hmm.
kind of accept that, right? So
We could
like
we could try one right now. What's something you're trying to accomplish in your life that you right now are not seeing results on? Not to put you on the spot, but is there anything that you think of right now? It's like, man, I really wish this could happen.
oh, maybe uh uh maybe
Something
maybe getting
something
yeah, yeah,
something
yeah.
small, something small, like, maybe a particular meal you'd like to have that you haven't tried yet in your local area or something. It could be
Oh
something very
yeah,
small.
I want to try the Captain Boyle's, the
The
Captain
what?
Boyle seafood. Captain Boyle, right?
Is that
Yeah,
like
it's a seafood
seafood?
restaurant.
Oh, okay, okay.
Oh yeah, I want to try the bag one. It has the spice and stuff, and
I so
it has crabs, lobster and
Yeah.
stuff. So I want to try that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's do right now, let's do an intention that you
It's crazy.
go ahead and close your eyes and
Yeah,
visualize
sure.
yourself sitting at a table at the restaurant, and you just described the bag to me. So I want you to see visually the experience of opening that up, and then viscerally have the smell hit you in the face and take that in. You can feel the salivation. You can start to um, think about what the taste of the meal is going to be like, and just how amazing that whole experience is going to be, and how grateful and appreciative that you're going to be, or that you are, for being in that experience, and recognize that there is nothing that can stop you, whether it's the distance to the restaurant, or the expense of the
Yeah,
meal, or how busy you are with school or work. Nothing can get in your way. There are no obstacles to you experiencing that particular
kind of funny.
circumstance, right?
Yeah.
It's happening in your mind. You're creating that, and you're visualizing the entirety, the whole sensory experience of that right now. All right. So, and I'm joining you in this. I'm with you. I'm
Yeah.
partnering with you to agree that that is an experience that you are having, not that you're going to have, that you're
Mm.
having right now. All right. So let's come out of that
Oh yeah,
intention,
it was
and
tasty, man. The crab was tasty.
was it good?
The spice kind of hit me.
You want me to let you eat for another few minutes, and I can
Yes,
just
I would appreciate that. I mean, but
so
yeah.
so that's it. I mean, really, the way that this particular individual, Lynn McTaggart, that I mentioned, the way she teaches it is like, you spend no more than like 5 to 10 minutes in that type of experience,
Mm,
whether it's by yourself or with a group. It's not about the amount of time, it's about the depth to which you allow your imagination to actually become your present experience. And once that's happened, you have programmed the universe to deliver that exact experience. Now, it may come in a different form than you expect. It may even be like a different restaurant
I've had
or
some experiences similar.
okay.
So I can share with you that it's a real
Yeah,
life example.
cool.
So I did the same thing, which was uh, like I have no idea how to play carom in a pro level. I don't know anything about carom. Okay,
What is that?
like carom, it's a board game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I was in a team with a good player
Hmm.
there, and it was during my university. We had a sport festival where there was a carom competition. So I didn't have any attachment to the outcome. Okay, if I fail, I fail. I was just I like playing the game, and I wanted to see how far I could go with this mind game of trying to believe things
Yeah,
happen and kind of achieve it. It was purely experimental. I didn't have any emotion attached to whether I was wanted to lose or I wanted to win, something like that. So I kind of focused my intention of imagining myself of getting the first prize. And being someone who actually it's been like never practices carom or something like that, I
hmm.
kind of won it, and not once, twice a year, the first prize.
You
So it
did.
was, yeah, I won it. I
Oh,
won
really?
twice. Yeah. That's crazy, right? Because I don't have any emotion attached to it. I never tried to
Yeah.
play carom consistently. It was just for fun and
Hmm.
seeing where I can, kind of fool around and kind of
Yeah.
get on with it. So
And I
yeah,
and
just to add on to that.
that's an important point that you bring up, that you were in a space of non-attachment and just having fun. Like some would call that like in a childlike state, right?
Yeah.
And there's a reason that many of the masters of creation, right, that have spoken to us in all the different forms and religions and everything, always talk about um, being in a childlike state of mind when you want to experience what nirvana or heaven or any of the great states of
Yeah.
experience are about. Like um, because joy and laughter are the motivating energies that actually build that initial wave of creation in the spirit realm. You have to have something that actually is propelling force and moving those ideas forward, like and um, just a stable, very focused but non-emotional state of being is not enough. You have to have some type of motive force behind it. Now, anger is a powerful motive force, right? And so sometimes people use anger as their motive force. And what happens generally when they do that? They end up causing damage and destruction and discord and harm to others or to themselves as a result of using a chaotic motive force. But joy and laughter are not in that way. They're not destructive. They are harmonizing, and they build unity and harmony into
Yeah.
whatever the creative structure is. So
It's kind of high in the pyramid of consciousness given by Dr. David Hawkins, right?
right, right. So I think even Hawkins acknowledged, like, learning to create using anger is a good step if that's all you have available to you.
At
If
least
that's
better than apathy or
it's yeah, it's
yeah,
better than apathy, and it's better than despair.
despair.
There's more power in anger, creative power and force in anger, but you're gonna very quickly see that you're creating things that you don't like or that you don't want
Mm-hmm.
or that other people don't like, right? You're creating damage and destruction instead of creating things that are going to be harmonious and enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
But then that hopefully propels you to take the anger bit by bit out of the circumstances and out of your creative force and start to use things that are less destructive and more harmonious. So that's a cool example. I love hearing examples like that. I had actually one this week, if I can share with you
Whoa,
a
sure,
story. Yeah,
definitely.
so real quickly, so I met this guy I'm a military retiree, and he also was retired from the military about the same time I retired in 2017. And when he retired, he said he was in a very dark place. He was contemplating suicide. He was in a state of despair and he had no idea where to go or what to do in his life. And he thought to himself, the only time I've ever really been happy is when I was out on the water and crabbing and collecting oysters with my father or grandfather. I can't remember which. So he decided right then he was going to go become a waterman and get a boat and learn to do these things, even though he had never done them professionally. Well, fast forward 6 or 7 years, and this guy developed a foundation that he now takes veterans who are in a similar state of despair and post-traumatic stress and various states of psychological disorder and introduces them to a life of working on the water and getting out and doing the types of things that he has found peace and joy
Whoa.
in his life as a result of doing. Well, that's not it. So I met this guy just a week ago, and then 3 days later, a friend of mine who's a construction contractor texted me, and he just asked a simple question. He said, "Hey, do you know anybody who's looking for any projects or work done in this local area? Because I'm having a hard time finding work, and I'm in a tough space financially right now. I need to go do some work." And I thought for a second, and I said, I just met this guy, and he mentioned that he was going to need somebody to do work out on his property for a while. And so I just gave him this guy's number. Okay. So my friend called him up, and 2 hours later, he told me the guy said, "Yeah, come out to my house today and the and come and see what needs to be done." And then this guy, that my friend, came over to my house literally like 4 hours after this initial contact and told me, "Yeah, I went out there and he gave me all this work to do and he's going to pay me all this money. And he told me if I do a good job, then I'll have a lot more work to do over the course of the next several months and years and that kind of thing." And I was like, wow, really?
Wow,
Like
that's amazing.
you literally I got to envision this joyful, bountiful, abundant, creative process occur just because people were willing to put themselves out there and do what they love in one case, and in the other case a guy was willing to put himself out there and make himself vulnerable and say, "I need help. Can anybody help me?" And in both of those cases, it was individuals letting go of fear and dropping the resistance to change and being willing to be open to something new, right? That's
Yeah,
what both
yeah.
both of those,
Totally agree.
and then immediately they got connected, and
That's amazing, man.
something great
That's
happened
that's
for
very
both of them.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, it was really special for me. There was nothing in it for me other than just witnessing the story, but that was, to me, it was more powerful than,
So
if
you are
they
like
had
a mediator to that
I
kind of.
guess, like, yeah, that's kind of how it felt. Like that's all I did is just kind of listened internally and then provided a whatever the thought was that came up. I just communicated that back to him, and he had to take action. He had to actually follow through on it, and there was, it wasn't a guarantee on any side, but it was just a beautiful, to me, those types of, I guess you call them synchronicities, those types of
Yeah, yeah,
things
yeah,
that
yeah,
that
definitely.
that come together and you go, "Well, that's how it should work. Like life should be that way. If somebody wants to follow their passion, they just do it. If somebody needs something, they just speak the need and the need is fulfilled." Like there's no reason that life cannot be that way. It's just
Yeah.
we have this belief system that says it has to be challenging and
Or
difficult
hard
and
work,
painful, hard work. It takes hard work, and that's the only
suffering,
way. Yeah, suffering.
emotion,
You have to work harder than everybody else. You have to prove you're the best. You have to beat everybody else in the system down in order for you to be on top.
competition.
And it's just not true, man. It's just not. That's
Yeah.
nothing
I
in
wanna
the
add
universe is
to
that
another
way.
experience.
Mm,
Like it just happened like 2 days back.
okay.
Yeah. So I was like very curious about Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Okay.
I had played games on my PC, digital games on Dungeons and Dragons, but I wanted to since I left playing games a bit right now, I wanted to experience the real Dungeons and Dragons. Like it's really an interesting game. You know about it, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's like a creative game where uh, you just get into the role and be more creative. I love creativity and like that type of games. So I just know that, in Western countries there are more people who actually play it. So I went to a community there and in a meetup. I went there, I met a lot of people who were like dungeon masters and who played this game, and they were wearing this t-shirt which says Toronto and Dungeons and Dragons. So I saw it and I'm like, damn, that's a cool t-shirt. I want it. I literally called that man, he was the organizer of that event, and he was the main organizer of the Toronto Dungeons and Dragons community. And I told him that, and I was telling everyone, oh, I want it. And I really wasn't in the state of a need. I just had the state of intention and
Hmm.
really didn't. And there was this lucky draw. I I got a coupon there, and there was a lucky draw, and my name came in. I got the That's crazy. And everyone is like, oh, he just came. He's the new one, new member, and
Hmm.
he already got the t-shirt. And I
Yeah.
even got the miniatures, which I have it here. Like, there's a lot of them.
Uh-huh.
Like here, miniatures, a lot of miniatures, and that
Yeah.
t-shirt, which was very cool. Oh, yeah, so it's it's kind of a small thing,
Mm.
but yeah, kind of
That's
relates to what you're saying.
but that's where we begin. Like I think there are no small things when it comes to creation, right? If if you have a pain in your chest, right, and you've realized through powerful intention and focus that you can take that pain away and it never comes back, to other people that might seem like a small thing, but to you that was a miracle, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that was an extraordinary happening
And
that
and that night, I was like planning to. I didn't have anything to do, and I just went there spontaneously, like
mm,
just out of curiosity as to what that is and
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that.
That's when we're in the magic space, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
When
yeah.
we don't do it because we've thought about it and we've decided that that's the most logical thing to do. We do it because we're just playing, right? We're just
Yeah,
having
yeah,
fun
yeah, exactly.
and we're following those natural whatever those inner leanings are, and then things just happen that we're like, wow,
We're like, oh man, that's so
that was
effortless. Like
cool.
I didn't know that. Oh, that's I mean, those thing that happens, it's not like I want it.
Hmm.
It is like a cherry on top of the cake, You
Yeah,
already have the cake, which is the experience you're having.
yeah,
You're doing something out of spontaneity.
yeah,
And that is it's just that it just comes, it's like a cherry
yeah.
on the top of the cake.
Yeah, people talk about like this addiction to materialism being somehow contrary to um, being a spiritual person or having a spiritual experience. But in reality, there is no separation between spirit and material.
Yeah, yeah.
Material is just spiritual energy that has slowed down to a degree that our senses think that it's a solid substance, right? So it's not collecting material things that makes you a non-spiritual person. It's thinking that having those material things makes you somehow better or elevates your stature as a person or as a human being
Yeah.
that
It's
takes
kind
you
of
away.
social construct, right?
Yeah,
That we have created.
it's a very fine line though. Like you can, if you remember the uh Osho, you familiar with Osho?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love
Yeah,
Osho.
yeah,
Yeah, I've
Indian
read a lot of
Indian
his books.
I think he was from around Mumbai, wasn't he? Like he was from,
Really?
I think
I
so.
know
I
I
can't,
know he's from India, but I don't know if
yeah,
he's from Mumbai.
I can't remember where his ashram was, but I thought it was somewhere outside of Mumbai. But anyway, so yeah, he came to America in the 80s and established a big following of maybe tens or hundreds of thousands of people out in Oregon. But he's
I
the one
love
that,
his thinking.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he's very non-conventional even today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it. It's kind of he kind of reminds me of Rabindranath Tagore,
Uh-huh.
which is like a poet. He's very like his thinking is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Osho had like 37 or something Rolls Royces and Rolex watches and all kinds of material
Badass
things.
guru, bro.
Yeah, and people would ask him like, why are you collecting all these material things? Like, doesn't that make you non-spiritual? And he said, "No, I love the way he talks too. He said, "No, I am an ordinary man And if I were extraordinary, I would deny myself all of these material things because I would think that I am beyond the ordinary experience of being a human.
Whoa,
But I
that's
am,
cool.
I am ordinary, and I appreciate all of creation, and I am trying to show, this
The
world that,
reasoning they come up with, man.
yeah, yeah, it was
Yeah,
beautiful. It was
it's
beautiful.
beautiful.
But he's like, also, someone could take all of this away from me tomorrow, and my happiness would not change one bit. Like, this is not the source of my happiness.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can both appreciate the flower and smell it and see it and love it, and also appreciate the fact that it's going to be dead in a day or two, right? Like, all of that is one process. And so we have to appreciate the beauty of the material things and enjoy them while we have them, and also appreciate the fact that they are only temporary, and they're going to be gone very
Yeah,
soon. So
it's pretty
it's a
cool.
cycle. We don't look at things in their in as a cycle, though. We look at them as, the material aspect is actually looking at a gold watch or a car and seeing it as just a material object. It's not. None of these things are material objects. The
I
beauty.
feel that like the object that you get
Hmm.
is more so the feeling that you get inside. It's not actually about that kind
Hmm.
of object or
Hmm.
that thing, but it's kind of the feeling that is generated inside.
Yeah, and where does that come from? It's not about the object, like you said. It's an appreciation for the beauty or the functionality or some unique aspect of that collection of atoms is sparking something, a higher level of vibration in you, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That is appreciation for divine experience. That's the thing we're missing in our culture, is just the understanding that appreciating things for their own value is in itself a experience of the divine. But we deny ourselves that recognition. We focus on the item, and then we think to ourselves, if someone steals this, then my life will be worse. So I have to lock it up and protect it and hold on to it. And I have to, in America, we protect our houses with guns so that
uh,
somebody doesn't come in and steal all of our shit. Like, who cares? Come in, if you want my stuff, come get my
really?
stuff. Uh, I'll get
Oh man.
I'll get more stuff. It's not a big deal. Like, this this shit is just nice stuff to sit on and play with for a little while, but it has no impact or implication on the beauty or the content of life at all. Like, it's just energy in different forms. And so, um I don't know. I think that's the kind of the next phase of psychology, is people starting to understand that understanding better what reality is helps you to understand better that everything we are and everything we experience is a cycle. It is a process of manifestation and then destruction, and then manifestation and then destruction. And once you really internally understand that, you don't attach to anything in manifest form anymore, because you begin to realize, like, the exciting thing is going from manifestation to destruction to manifestation again. Like, you want to go through that process because that's where newness and creativity and unique experience comes from.
Yeah,
If
much
we're
more
always,
liberal perspective
well, if we're always
in the
clinging,
political sense.
yeah, maybe if you're always clinging, yeah, conservatism is in a lot of ways is clinging to the way things are right now.
Yeah,
And if you're always clinging to the way things are right now, you're never going to get to experience anything new like that.
because it's more safer, right? Like
Yeah.
it's more
Well,
safer. There is a reason to it, but yeah, I don't know.
we tend to think that with uncertainty comes the risk of destruction or death.
Yeah,
We still fear death because we don't know what death is. We think death is final. We think death is the end. But how many great uh, sages, gurus, speakers, saints have come to tell us that death is not the end. Death is just a transitory phase that you go through, no worse off than, leaving a video game character behind. You talked about playing Dungeons and Dragons, right?
oh
When
yeah.
your character in Dungeons and Dragons gets killed off, do you freak out and make a big deal about it. No, you go, well, I'll come back next week and I'll have another character and I'll play
Yeah,
again.
yeah,
Like that
definitely.
that truly is the same level of significance that we should um, place
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
the death experience, but we still have this inherent human
Because it
fear.
feels so real, right? Like suffering. But
Yeah, yeah.
but if you like practice letting go, maybe you can
Hmm.
let go of that suffering and understand that it's just an emotions which is passing by.
Well, that's
And
why a lot of what we've talked before about like people that practice different meditations to do out of body experiences and travel in different dimensions and that kind of thing. And I think that's why those types of practices are becoming more popular, is because they do allow the individual the experience of momentarily stepping out of the physical association. And once you do that, and then once you repeat that process, your fear of death gradually just dissolves, because you realize, like, if I can right now, as what I'm identifying as a human being in a human body, my consciousness, I can step out of this body experience and experience other things and then come back into this and continue like nothing happened, then why am I scared of death? Like, I literally just went through exactly what that is. What It's no different.
that's
It's just a change in conscious
yeah,
orientation.
that's kind of a big topic, like coming to lucid dreams and astral
Yeah,
projection.
yeah, yeah. Dreams are another space where I think we're going to learn a lot about what we are, what creation really is. Once we start to learn to really interpret the symbolic aspect of our dreams, like, our power goes way up, way up.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah. Do you do any dream analysis or anything like that?
No, not yet, but like there is a lot of dream analysis and stuff. I've read about Carl Jung, and Carl Jung, he does that, and I kind of relate to that. And I've kind of analyzed my friend's dream, mostly friends and my own dream,
Yeah.
and like understanding that there is different archetypes in dreams, and understanding which really, like, certain dreams, they have this motives are basically archetypes that are present in certain books, like in traditional books and
Mm-hmm.
spirituality and stuff like that. These kind of archetypes are very primitive in nature.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's so easy to interpret the dreams.
Yeah.
And I think that's a skill. It's like understanding your own unconscious mind and kind of understanding your animus, which is the different part of the psyche in the Jungian
Mm-hmm.
archetype, Jungian realm. Anima, animus, and the self, and the shadow self. Mostly it's like shadow work, right?
Mm-hmm.
um Understanding your unconscious mind and the aspect of yourself that you repressed because you are too ashamed to show it to the people, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of integrating that and becoming more whole. It's the same thing, like
Yeah.
going from a separation to whole. Like if you are too, let's say, conservative, you want to like experience more liberalism and kind of integrating it.
Mm-hmm.
If you are too, like, let's say, introverted, you kind of want to go toward the extroverted and kind of integrating that into your personality.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like everyone in this world is like going towards becoming more whole. Like people who are rich are trying to be poor.
Mm-hmm.
Like they want to experience that, that small joy of life. And people who are too poor want to become rich.
Yeah. Well,
It's the same game.
it goes back to what you were talking about earlier about coming from a society that largely, at least historically, has not focused on the individual and the accomplishments of the individual as much as now Western society does. And now you want to experience that, right? And then
Yeah.
I'm having been raised in the United States, I'm like, I'm tired of
Proud
the
of this
individual.
BS.
Well, it's like I played that role for so long, like,
Yeah.
of the individual needing to accomplish and achieve and be the best and compete and all these things, and realize, like, there is no fulfillment at the end of any of those cycles of impressing the world for whatever reason, right? There's just not. And so I then started to look toward your culture and others like it for alternatives to that experience. So I think it's beautiful to me now that you and I have become friends and have the opportunity to interact, and now we're both kind of like crossing paths
Yeah, yeah,
with our interests, and neither one of them is wrong, and neither one of them is going to lead to, I don't think, like disappointment or destruction.
yeah.
It's showing that we are opening our aperture as individuals, and then hopefully many of the rest of the world are doing the same, where they're like exploring beyond their own cultural boundaries and learning to think and act in ways that have not even been explored in their own within their own borders. It's a pretty cool thing.
So when are you moving to India or other Asian countries?
I want to visit. Like maybe next time you go back, you let me know, and maybe we'll do a trip back there, and you can
Yeah, yeah.
show me your homeland. That would be
Yeah,
great.
yeah, definitely, man.
Yeah,
That will be a good adventure for you.
that would be very cool.
Yeah.
Do you ride motorcycles at all? Have you ever
Yeah,
ridden a
yeah.
motorcycle?
I
Yeah.
I learned driving as well, so
Okay. Well, hey, we'll have to do it. Maybe we can do a motorcycle trip through
yeah,
India or something
yeah,
one of these days.
definitely.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
it's
would be
beautiful to go in the motorcycle at the night in the
uh-huh.
bridges of Mumbai
Oh,
and
wow.
Goa. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
And of course, I've only had Indian food in America and a little bit in England as well. So
Oh,
I'm sure it's different in the
yeah,
actual
it's
homeland.
it's very different.
Yeah, yeah. So you'll have to introduce me to the best of the
Yeah,
home
yeah,
cuisine too.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
The street food are the main ones,
yeah.
and yeah, but
That would
yeah.
be that would be a profound life experience for me. So as to when I would be moving there, well, I don't know. I guess it depends on how good my tour guide is.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Looking forward.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be fun. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we want to go ahead and wrap up the recording for now, you think?
Yes, yes, definitely.
All right, all
It's
right.
more than
Well,
a hard, I guess. I don't
yeah,
know.
good stuff. That's okay. Well, for anybody still hanging around with us, thank you for just listening through this stream of consciousness as we often do. And hope you join us for another chat sometime real soon. Blessings to everybody.
Yeah, bye bye.
Let's see.